Hello there, people of the internet. I was out on my public gun range, my local gun range, not too terribly long ago, and I came across somebody who was very much just a drunk redneck out there playing on the range with his shotgun using some birdshot. And he asked me to make a video on shotguns. I've made several shotgun videos, but you know what? I think I'm going to sit down and actually give my opinion about shotguns, and that's kind of what it boiled down to. The opinion on shotguns, we went back and forth, etc., etc. So, here in the gun community, which if you're watching this, you're probably part of the gun community. Here in the gun community, we pretty much know that shotguns are extraordinarily universal. Between the birdshot, the buckshot, and the slugs, they can handle a good variety of different jobs. However, that being said, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that shotguns are severely and cripplingly underrated here in the United States. Now, in other parts of the world, that might be different, because I know other parts of the world have certain regulations and certain aspects that they have to look at. But here in the US, whenever it comes to anything involving any kind of firearm, really, besides like shooting birds or beer cans, people normally look at other styles of firearms. Like if you're going hunting for anything besides birds, the likelihood of you grabbing a shotgun is quite low. Odds are you're going to go for a rifle of some kind. Or if you're looking for defensive purposes, odds are you're going to grab a handgun for concealed carry, or a rifle for any sort of, say, home defense sort of situations, maybe a pistol caliber carbine if that's more your fancy. Most people don't go for the humble little shotgun, and I would say that in most instances, like, even as bad as things might get, the terrible things that we may potentially see as United States citizens, most instances, most situations that we would come across could be solved with a shotgun. Even if we look into really hyper niche, one-of-a-kind sort of outlier situations, it could probably still be handled with a shotgun. So the shotgun is a really, really, really good one-stop shot. Some double-aught buckshot or a slug or something like that, center mass on pretty much anything here in the United States, be it two-legged or four-legged, be it predator or prey, be it defensive or hunting or whatever situation it is that you're coming across. I'm willing to bet that after that one shot, yeah, that thing's probably going to stop doing whatever the heck it's doing. I'm willing to bet it's probably no longer going to be alive after that particular encounter. Now, there are, of course, less effective rounds for the shotgun. Like, I wouldn't exactly say try shooting a target at 100 yards with, I don't know, number 8 target load birdshot. But I'm willing to bet that if you have a shotgun with a good choke, good barrel, and maybe even some flight control, you're probably going to smack a couple rounds of double-aught buck on that target. And if you want to touch out to some longer distances, like say out to 300 or even further yards, getting yourself a rifled barreled shotgun with some slugs would absolutely be able to make that distance. If you're concerned about heavy recoil, then you can go out and get yourself some reduced recoil loads for your 12-gauge shotgun, which is most likely what people are going to go for, because 12-gauge shotguns are extraordinarily predominant here in the United States. I say predominant, I hope that's the right word to use in this particular situation. But if you want less power, less recoil, but still quite good effect, then you can even go for, say, a 20-gauge shotgun, or sometimes even smaller. There's 28-gauge shotguns out there. Or you can even go all the way down to the humble 410, which even a 5-year-old could shoot that. So, if you're concerned about recoil, that's fine. There's either a shotgun load or a shotgun gauge out there that can still give you all of the universality of your humble shotgun without breaking your shoulder. Now, if you want particularly different kinds of shotguns, there's also those out there. With this right here, this is a pump-action shotgun. This is probably the most common kind of shotgun that you're going to find. This one has a nice long barrel. It's got a full choke. This particular one handles flight control really, really well. And I would say I got no problems hitting flight control buckshot out at 100 yards with that particular one. Now, if you want, say, a single shot, because you have, I don't know, shotgun adapters to where you can convert your shotgun to fire 22 long rifle, 9mm, 38 special, 357 Magnum, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, and a plethora of other rounds. It's literally, it looks like a little steel shotgun shell, and then you stick it into the chamber of your shotgun, and then in the center of that adapter is another chamber that you can stick whatever caliber it is that you want inside that thing and convert your shotgun to fire whatever that chamber adapter allows you to be able to fire, which is a really, really good tool to have. So you can go out and get yourself one gun and a bunch of chamber adapters and have the ability to fire just a tremendous number of different kinds of ammunition. Now, if you want some, what's the word I'm looking for? Unique guns, some interesting guns. One of the big issues with modern guns is a lot of them just aren't interesting enough. And I think the shotgun is just not interesting enough because it what's the word I'm looking for? It turns shooting into easy mode. Like, it's a really, really, really simple way to be able to do a lot of jobs with one firearm, and people don't like that. They like a little bit of a challenge. Alright, I'll be honest. It's been a little while since I last recorded this particular video, and I can't quite remember where I left off with it, but I'm pretty sure that I was talking about how people don't like shotguns because they make things really, really easy. The general idea of having a shotgun as a general purpose, do most jobs firearm is just something that not a lot of people like. And I think that's the same reason why people don't like the AR platforms either, because you can set those up for literally any job that you might have. But shotguns can be exciting as well. Like, for example, a lot of people get excited whenever they think of a shotgun and they think of like a World War I style trench gun. That seems to be something that people flock to, not necessarily because it makes things easy, but because it was a very unique firearm in a very dark period in mankind's history that for some reason people seem to fantasize over. So this is a good example of something that would be reminiscent of a trench gun. It would look something like this right here. I do have a Winchester 1897. I'm just not sure which pile of guns it's in, so I'm going to use this Stevens right here. I'm pretty sure that in Vietnam these right here were used, but for all intents and purposes it would have looked something like this right here. Very similar handguard to what we're looking at right here as well, except it probably would have had a shorter barrel. I think that those were like 18-inch barrels, and it would have had a heat shield over the top and a bayonet lug. This is very clearly a commercial style shotgun. But if you show someone like a World War I setup trench gun, or a Vietnam Ithaca trench gun, or something like that, to the point to where they're like, oh, that's actually really cool and interesting because it's associated with something else that I find really cool and interesting, then you'll end up getting some people who are fascinated by shotguns. But that's just not something that happens as often as, like, say, rifles. Like, if I were to show somebody a Remington 870 or this Rossi 357 Magnum lever action, they're probably gonna, like, eyeball the Rossi before they do that Remington 870. Here's another good example of a really unique and interesting shotgun. Way back in the day, whenever shotguns were way more prolific than I feel like they are now, a lot of this old school black powder surplus that was out on the market in, say, the early 1900s was converted to use shotgun shells simply because many people in the United States were still living on frontiers and they had to rely on hunting and gathering in order to feed themselves and the family. This right here is a Remington rolling block that's been converted to a 28 gauge shotgun, and it's really, really cool. I actually really like this little Remington conversion. The barrel itself, the rifling that was inside of it was taken out, and I don't think that it has any choke on it whatsoever, because it doesn't look like it's been modified to have any choke on it, but it's actually a really cool little shotgun. 28 gauge, not a whole lot of recoil behind it. But this is an example of a shotgun that you can have that is interesting. This particular one is 1883 production? Yeah, 1883 production, so right there on the side. So this is a cool shotgun. It's got what's the word I'm looking for? Practicality behind it. I have legitimately used this particular one for hunting purposes and clay shooting. I remember Battlefield Curator came down and we did some clay shooting with this particular gun, and that was fun. I don't know if we got that on camera or not, but that was fun. That was one of those times where it was just us out there dicking around and enjoying ourselves. But this is a good example of a really interesting shotgun that still has some practicality purposes behind it. You could legitimately use this, as I do, still to this day, and it's interesting enough to get people's attention. And where's another one? Here's another one. This is one that is a real oddball. I think that this is a Snyder. So this is an old school Snyder conversion that was converted from a cartridge firing gun into just a straight, I don't want to call it a cap and ball gun. It's a cap lock system, sort of. So right here's our typical Snyder system, and normally you would slide a cartridge into the Snyder system and there would be a firing pin set up to set that cartridge off. But in this particular case, this was converted to fire from a cap lock, like you use a percussion cap on this to make it fire. So you would take your, I'm assuming, paper shotgun shell, cram it into this thing, and as you close it, hopefully, in theory, if this was in better shaping, a little bit sharper and a little bit more oomph behind it, that should cut the paper shell, expose the black powder. And this right here is a percussion cap nipple. A lot of people are like, no, that's for a firing pin. No, that is a percussion cap nipple for a musket cap. This right here, I know what I'm looking at. I've messed around with plenty of guns in my times, and that is exactly what that right there is. That is not a firing pin channel. This right here was converted for musket caps, percussion caps, and it's made to use caseless ammunition. And I'm not sure why that was done. It was probably done during a time period where people did not have ready access to, say, brass case ammunition. Maybe they couldn't find what this particular thing took, or maybe they did it as a cost-saving measure. Maybe they made their own paper cartridges and they were like, hey, we just can't afford to go out and buy shotgun shells, so I'm going to convert this thing to percussion cap and we're going to make it work. I mean, there's no telling what really went on with this thing, but I do know that there's no firing pin setup in this, but this is a really good example of something that is really unique and not something that you would see very often at all. And as a result, with something like this right here, that makes people scratch their head and say, hey, what the heck is that? Ooh, actually, here's another really good example. This is a musket. This one's actually from the Civil War. This is dated 1838. I can't remember what pattern of musket this particular one actually is, but it used to be a flintlock and it was converted to percussion cap by the Confederacy, I believe, during the United States Civil War. And they did a lot of flintlock conversions to percussion caps for numerous reasons that are beyond the scope of this particular video. But this one right here is a smoothbore musket. I think it's either 69 or 74 caliber. I can't remember. I probably should measure that out. But long story short, with this being a smoothbore musket, you can load it with round ball, conical bullets, or even, say, buckshot or birdshot to essentially use it like it's a shotgun. What a smoothbore musket is literally like a black powder shotgun. That's literally what it is, because it's just a smoothbore that sends whatever you load into the barrel out of the barrel at hopefully decent velocities, depending on how much powder you use. So that's another really cool example of something that is really cool that could be used as a shotgun that would potentially get people's interest. So I can't quite remember what all I had to say in this particular video. Like I said, it's been a little while since I started recording this one. I had to go do some stuff. I had to go do some stuff. That sentence has a lot of weight behind it that I'm not going to tell you guys about. So I had to go handle some stuff, but I think I pretty much covered all of my basins talking about what my opinion is on shotguns. They're severely underrated and severely overlooked because people don't like whenever things are made as easy as possible. They like that challenge. They like the interest behind things that they find interesting. And there's just not really all that much that revolves around shotguns that people find interesting. That's why they find, say, trench guns interesting, because they're interested in World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, Korea, etc., etc. Just areas of time where these shotguns were used, but they're more interested in those, like those periods of time, than they are in the actual shotgun itself. The only reason they're interested in that particular shotgun is because it was used in that particular period of time. And these interesting guns that are shotguns are also ones that kind of fall into that category. Remington rolling block. Anyone who knows about these finds them very interesting. Or the Civil War musket. A lot of people would find that one interesting as well. Or this one, the Snyder conversion. That is a really unique one, and I'm glad I have that in my collection, because that's not something you see all the time. So thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I guess I'll see you on the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garrett. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.